Oftentimes, you hear your pro-black talking about building, and when they talk about this, they generally do not understand what the concept of building anything is. When you build, you often have to work with partners, and in order to work with partners, you have to learn how to agree to disagree and hold your tongue. And this is something your pro-black never understands because the pro-black, for the most part, live in their own head. And because they live in their own head, they believe everybody has to agree with them. They believe that their ideas are the best ideas and that their way is the only way. What they don't understand is that in the real world, you have to learn how to compromise with others and you have to learn how to form a consensus with the others on how best to meet the needs of the community. And that's how you build, and that's how you really put things together because you have to work with other partners. And this is something your pro-black just doesn't understand. They think that building a community is something that is going to be done all by themselves, and they believe in the concept of monolithic thought that everybody has to think the same way. And they also think, and when it comes down to this whole monolithic thought concept, they think everybody has to think like them. And this is why it's completely backwards because if everybody can't think the same way and everybody can't think their way. My vision for a black community would be completely different from another person's black community. Um, and everybody's vision is completely different. I mean, I know from working with artists on book covers, I may present them with a concept and they may give me a totally different picture than what I imagined. And oftentimes, when I do present them with an idea, they present me with a picture 10 times better than what I could have imagined. Because again, they have craft and skills and they understand things like scale and scope and perspective. But your pro black, again, wants to form the idea in his head and he wants to make it the only idea for developing a black community. And his ideas, again, they're great because they're in his head. They're not, you know, tested in a business environment. They're not tested, by others, and they're not bounced off of other people. When you don't, I could have a great idea, but if I don't bounce it off somebody else, I may not find out, the flaws in it. And when it comes down to this pro-black, they think their ideas are the greatest thing since sliced bread. And because they're so full of hubris, they don't understand that, every idea is not a perfect idea. Sometimes you have a nice concept, sometimes you have interesting, premise or things like that, but it doesn't make it perfect. You have to be able to understand that when you're working with others, you're going to have to take their input and their consideration into play. But your pro-black never understands this concept. Again, they live in their own world. It's almost like, again, a child. And a child in their own imagination believes everything that they're imagining is absolutely perfect. And sometimes, it's not until their parents deconstruct the ideas and break them down and show them, that this is not, the absolute perfect idea, and that this may not work. Like a child may think, I can jump out the window like Superman. It's not until, the parent shows them that, Superman isn't real and that we have this thing called gravity. And the sad part is your pro-black doesn't live in a world with gravity or reality. And a lot of these guys, again, they think they can, build up a black community through the most inane concepts. I mean, and they think they also can build without a partner. They think that they can just do it all by themselves. And this is just not possible. And what these guys will do whenever they run into, other business persons like myself or other people who have business experiences, they'll try to attack us with shaming tactics, bullying, ad hominem attacks, post hoc attacks. They'll do all this stuff not understanding that in order to build, again, you need partners. And when you attack people who are trying to work with you, all you're doing is alienating them. Because if you say you're going to build, you can't tear down the partners. The partners are the people you're going to need to help you do things. And your pro black just doesn't understand, this basic business concept. And that in a lot of cases, if you want to get investors on your side, what you're going to have to do is hold your tongue and, keep your little opinions to yourself and do what is in the best interests of a business and or achieving a goal. But your pro-black, they think again because they think like this female. They're very emotional and they take things very personal. They think their way is the best way, and they don't want to hear anybody else's way. And then what they want to do when they get to the forum is they want to bully everybody into going their way, even though there may be people with more expertise and experience to tell them why their way just doesn't work. And you can't build anything if you're going to tear down people who want to work with you and people who have more experience, more skills, more education, and more expertise in an area. Because an ideal is one thing, but you need professionals to make that ideal real. And this is something, your pro-black doesn't understand because, again, many of these guys live in their own heads. They like the sound of their own voices, and they like to listen to only hear themselves talk. They don't want to listen to anybody else. And anybody who disagrees with them, again, here they come with their 50-cent words and their shaming tactics, calling somebody a coon, a black buffoon, a sellout, and an Uncle Tom. And that's not a constructive discourse when you want to talk about concepts such as your group economics or, developing black businesses in a black community. And this is something your pro-black just doesn't understand, that in order to do business, you have to have um, ability to work with others. Moreover, you have to understand that in order to build a black community, you have to develop products and businesses that will appeal to not just, a small cadre of Negroes in the community. You need to have, because when you talk about building, you just can't sell, DVDs talking about white supremacy or your shea butter bought from a Korean or your black soap. That's not, those products are nice, but they're extremely niche, and that's not going to appeal to a broader marketplace. When you're creating products to build your infrastructure with, you want products that are going to appeal to a broad spectrum of people, and you need to have a product that can allow you to enter foreign markets and non-black markets so that you can have revenue streams coming into your community so that you can make money from other groups, other demographics. And this is something your pro-black, again, just doesn't understand. They think that, because they're making a few dollars off a DVD talking about white supremacy with a bunch of talking heads who just go on and who drone on and on and on about the problem, that they've accomplished something. But this does not help you build a community, nor does, your basic businesses where you're selling these things like your shea butters and your soaps. This stuff does not help you build a business. You have to have, you know, products that not only one generate revenue, but two allow you to build wealth. And this is something your pro-black just doesn't understand. Again, they come at these concepts from a child's level, and they may know of them, but they just don't understand them and how they apply to the real world. And when you understand how these concepts apply to the real world, it gives you perspective on what you need to do. Now, your pro-black will, again, they will talk about all this stuff, but they just won't know, you know, that you have to have um, a certain demeanor and decorum when you're going out to do business. You just can't go around attacking people all the time because, again, when you're working in a business world, you're going to run into differences of opinion, differences of ideas, and you're going to have to learn how to, again, bite your tongue and maintain a sense of composure because your ultimate goal is not to persuade this person to see that your opinion is the only opinion. Your goal is to get these goals completed. These goals that are set on your agenda, this is what you're trying to do. You don't have time, to sit here and argue with this person about ideals and ideologies. And this is something the pro-black loves to do because, again, they live in their head. And in their head, ideologies and ideals are what make up what they're imagining. And in the real world, when you take something from an imagined idea into reality, it's a different story. This is something, I've learned over the last 20 years just writing stories and even working with professional artists and other people. You know, you have an idea in your head, but it's a whole different thing to execute it. And this is something your pro black just doesn't understand, that executing something is completely different than what you have in your head. Now, when you're working by yourself, yeah, you can make something go a certain way. But when you're working with others, you're going to have to learn how to, compromise, again, bite your tongue, pick your battles, understand that, you know, as long as you're getting one or two of the things that you're looking for, one of the goals that you met, you have to learn how to help the other person meet their goals. And this is something that they don't understand about group economics. A lot of these pro blacks believe that group economics is a concept, where everybody gives them money, but they don't think about, sharing with others. And part of the concept of group economics is, you know, I have a business, and then if I see another black business, I give them some help. You know, if I see a business like a Harlem's Heaven or, a guy like the Iceman, I, put a link to their business on my Facebook page or on my blog, or I tell other people about it, and they reciprocate by doing the exact same thing for me. That's all goes into group economics, and that all goes into networking, because the more word of mouth that is spread, the better it is for all the black businesses, and then all the black businesses all get money, and they all can contribute, to keeping dollars in the black community. And again, because a lot of your pro blacks don't see things from that panoramic perspective and understand this, they only think that, everything is about them getting money for themselves and not about, meeting the needs of others who could possibly help them. And this is how they alienate, possible partners who could have helped them. But this is something your pro black, they never understand, and they cannot think about. Because again, when you're in your own head and you're not bouncing ideas off of people who can disagree with you, and you're just dealing with sycophants and, people who are willing to follow your own doctrine, you never understand that in order to work in the business world, again, you have to understand, the protocols and procedures of the business world. Because, again, in order to build, you need to have partners. And in order to have partners, you have to be able to understand how to be tactful, diplomatic, you know, and you have to understand how to, navigate a business environment with some professionalism and some courtesy. And you may not get all of the things you want done, but you may get some of them done. And as long as you get, the major important points that you and your partner set out to meet done, you have accomplished something. I mean, everything isn't going to be done in a day, and some goals are just plain unrealistic. Like many of these pro blacks have this concept that they're going to fight white supremacy. This is just unrealistic and just totally ridiculous. You cannot fight an idea that is as broad as this, with a DVD or, a book. It's just not going to change anybody's mind like this, because we've had these type of DVDs and books over the years, and it's just not going to, change millions of minds like that. As a writer myself, I create positive stories about the black experience, and I have an understanding that, if I can get one person to take a look at something from a different perspective, I feel like I've accomplished something. But as for trying to take on white supremacy, I know that that's just not possible. The concept is just too broad, and the the ideology is bordering on a religion, that's in many cases bigger than Jesus in many cases. And people need to understand that, that's not going to be, Negro's not going to put a dent in that at all. It's just not possible. And it's time to focus on, realistic goals like, group things like building up black businesses, supporting black businesses, building a network that helps black men and women get jobs. These are realistic concepts, and these are goals that can be achieved. But many of your pro-blacks and many of your Negroes won't focus on those ideals. They'll just stick with the concept of fighting this ideal known as white supremacy, and you can't fight an ideal unless you can, you can't really fight an idea. You can't fight it. What you can do is you can counter program, you know, like I try to do with my books, um, and try to persuade people to see things from a different perspective. And that's going to take, time. It's not going to be, I know it's not going to be done in my lifetime, but maybe I can, get people to see things differently. And what I found, is from most of the cases with my ebook campaigns, people do see, you know, things from a different perspective, and it gives them, that perspective on, what black is, and it gives people, a bit more of a balanced picture. Especially, I think, in foreign communities, people, they were looking for different pictures and different ideas. They don't want to see, you know, this monolithic ideal that many of your pro-blacks and your ghetto Negroes want to present as the idealized black image. There is no one idealized black image of what it is to be black, and we need to see, different pictures of the black experience, because that gives people a broader perspective and a broader understanding of what it is to be black. And, when you look at your pro-black and your approach to business, the reason why they a lot of times wind up stagnant again is because they just don't understand, you have to be able to bring people together, you have to be able to unite people, and you have to be able to agree to disagree. I mean, if you look at Malcolm and Martin, they didn't agree um, on their ideals, but they managed to work together in the civil rights movement. Same thing with Booker T. Washington and W.E.B. Du Bois. They had different ideals, but everybody understood that the ultimate goal was, moving the black race forward. But when you look at your pro-black, they want everything to go their way, and that's just not going to work at all. You need to have the ability to understand that everything is about compromise, and you have to be able to work with different partners. You have to be able to disagree with those different partners. You have to be able to know how to pick your battles with those partners, and you have to be able to know that you're going to have to form a consensus with those partners about what goals you want to meet. Because again, if you want to really build something, you're not going to be able to do it alone. I know for a fact that it's just ridiculous for anybody to think that they're going to be able to do it alone, and that, you know, a business selling shea butter or a guy making DVDs about white supremacy is going to help, take the black community to the next level. You need different type of businesses, you need different type of business partners, and you need to have different people, you know, presenting different types of businesses, um, to meet those goals. We really need to understand that it, what we're making, what a lot of these businesses are products and services, and you need to have other things on the table too, like manufacturing. So if you have those type of things, you can have, a group of businesses that do different things, and then all of you can come together to form a community, because that's how things are done in other communities, like the Hispanic community, the Asian community, and the white community, and this is how it is done internationally. But your black community, we think that we're gonna, have group economics where there's just a handful of individuals, making products like your, pro-black DVDs or your shea butter and soap, and then think you're going to build, economic base with this. This is not how you build an economic base. When you build an economic base, is with a diverse array of products and a diverse array of services, and that's how you build your community, because everybody has to have something that, you know will help them move forward. You need to have all types of businesses so that people can get different skills and different experiences. I mean, you need your IT professionals, you need your doctors, you need your lawyers, you need your scientists, you need labs, all sorts of stuff like this. And these are the things that are going to help you build your infrastructure and help you build wealth in your community. But your pro-black doesn't understand these type of concepts. A lot of them fly over their head. They read them, again. They read them, but they just don't understand them because they don't have the critical thinking skills to, deconstruct this information and understand how it works in the real world. Because again, they live in their heads, they live in an imagination, they love the sound of their own voice, and they can't understand, you know, that in order to apply these concepts, you're going to have to work with other people, and you're going to have to learn, that your opinion isn't the only opinion and that your ideas aren't the only ideas. So that's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe.